Hey, fourth grade. I am so excited to see you here on this Wednesday. Um, I don't know, I missed you a lot today. Um, just middle of the week. Um, but, anyways, let's go over our assignments from today. Things that are due soon. What might they look like? So, for today, you should be working on your book club reading, but you do not have a discussion post today. That'll be tomorrow. You should be continuing to work on your 2 handwritten paragraphs for your American Revolution essays. In math, you should be doing the reteaching for 14.2 and turning it in. Tomorrow is the practice page. Remember, we talked about yesterday how math is going to be going in a cycle of completing the reteaching page, then the practice, the reteaching page, then the practice. And then science, there is a video and a quiz that you could watch today, but those things are due by the end of the day tomorrow. You have 2 days to complete them. You also have your animal projects. Selecting an environment that you want that animal to live in, and then making your own animal with its own adaptations for that ecosystem. Those pictures that you are creating along with your paragraphs are due on Friday. Let me know what questions you have about those. As always, make sure you're checking your specials assignments in Power School. Ms. Schilling, I know, sent the teachers a message about the assignments, and that you're having a hard time with logging in and finding those assignments for her class. And so if your parents log into Power School, there is a message posted in our Google Classroom, Power School page for Rogahn 2K19, our regular Power School page for the Rogahn class, with information from Ms. Schilling about her assignments. So, with that being said, we can pick up with where we were yesterday. And let's see here. So, Maniac McGee, he was running around, he was playing with the high school football team, and where we ended yesterday is there's this eerie, kind of creepy house that has an older gentleman in it, and people stay away from his yard, from his front door. And so there's a bunch of high schoolers that are really just not being that kind to this gentleman. I was trying to find his name. Arnold Jones. And he was kind of being bullied in a way, I would say. And he was tossed over the fence into the Finsterwald's backyard. And you could hear the chattering of his teeth. He was so scared. So that is where we're picking up from today. Years later, the high schoolers' accounts differ. One says the kid from nowhere hopped the fence. Hopped it without even laying a hand on it to boost himself over. And another kid says he just opened the back gate and strolled on in. Another swears it was a mirage, some sort of hallucination, possibly caused by evil emanations surrounding 803 Oriole Street. Real or not, they all saw the same kid, not much bigger than Arnold Jones. raggedy, flap-soled sneakers, book in one hand. It's maniac. They saw him walk right up to Arnold. They saw Arnold look at him and faint dead away. Such a bad case of the Finsterwallies. Remember, that's the violent trembling of the body, especially in the arms and legs. They call those that Finsterwallies. It's a made-up word, but that's what they mean by that. Such a bad case of the Finsterwallies did Arnold have that his body kept shaking for half a minute after he conked out. The phantom Samaritan stuck the book between his teeth, crouched down, hoisted Arnold Jones' limp carcass over his shoulder, and hauled it out of there like a sack of flour. Unfortunately, he chose to put Arnold down at the one spot in town as bad as Finsterwald's backyard, namely Finsterwald's front yard. When Arnold came to and discovered this, he took off like a horsefly from a swatter. As the stupefied high schoolers were leaving the scene, they looked back. They saw the kid, cool times 10, stretch out on the forbidden steps and open his book to read. Chapter 6. After an hour later, Mrs. Valerie Pickwell twangled open her back screen door and stood on the step and whistled. As whistles go, Mrs. Pickwell's was one of the all-great calls. It reeled in every Pickwell kid for dinner every night. Never was a Pickwell kid ever late for dinner. It's a record that will probably stand forever. The whistle wasn't loud. It wasn't screechy. It was a simple 2-note job. One high note, one low note. To an outsider, it wouldn't sound all that special. But to the ears of a Pickwell kid, it was magic. Somehow it had the ability to slip through the slush of 5 o'clock noises to reach its targets. So, from the dump, from the creek, from the tracks, from Red Hill, in ran the Pickwell kids for dinner, all 10 of them. Add to that the parents, baby Dee Dee, grandmother and grandfather Pickwell, great-grandfather Pickwell, and a down-and-out taxi driver whom Mr. Pickwell was helping out. The Pickwells were always helping out somebody. All that, and you had what Mrs. Pickwell called her small nation. Only a ping-pong table was big enough to seat them all, and that's what they ate around. Dinner was spaghetti. In fact, every third night was spaghetti. Oh, I had that growing up. Thursday was always frozen pizza, and Tuesday was always taco night. I bet you have something like that too. When dinner was over, they were all bringing their dirty dishes to the kitchen. Dominic Pickwell said to Duke Pickwell, "Who's that kid?" "What kid?" said Duke. "The kid next to you at the table." "I don't know. I thought Donald knew him." "I don't know him," said Donald. "I thought Dion knew him." "Never saw him," said Dion. "I figured he was DeAndre's new boyfriend." DeAndre kicked Dion in the shin. Duke checked back in the dining room. "He's gone!" The Pickwell kids dashed out the back door to the top of Racco Hill. They scanned the railroad tracks. There he was, passing Red Hill, a book in his hand. It's him again. A book in his hand. He was running, passing the Spear Field now, and the Pickwell kids had to blink and squint and shade their eyes to make sure they were seeing right, because the kid wasn't running the cinders alongside the tracks or the wooden ties. No, he was running where the Pickwell kids themselves, where each other kid and only ever walked, on the steel rail itself. When Jeffrey Rogahn was next spotted, it was at the Little League field in the park. A Little League game had just ended. The Red Sox had won, but the big story was John McNabb, who struck out 16 batters to set a new 2 Mills LL record. McNabb was a giant. He stood 5'8" and was said to weigh over 170 pounds. He had to bring his birth certificate in to the director to prove he was only 12. And still, most people didn't believe it. He stood 5'8". Let's see, if I am 5'6", he would only be 2 inches taller than me. So if you want to picture that, he's as tall as me as an adult. And he's only 12. The point is, the rest of the league was no match for McNabb. It wouldn't have been so bad if he'd been a right fielder, but he was a pitcher. And there was only one pitch he ever threw, a fastball. Most of the batters never saw it, but just heard it whizzing past their noses. You could see their knees shaking from the stands. One poor kid stood there long enough to hear strike one go past, then threw up all over home plate. Oh, poor kid. It was still pretty light out, because when there was a lot of strikeouts, a game goes pretty fast. And McNabb was still on the mound. Even though the official game was over, he'd figure he made baseball history, and he wanted to streak it out as long as he could. There were still about 10 players around. Red Soxers, Green Soxers, and McNabb were making them march up to the plate and take their swings. There was no catcher. The ball just zoomed to the backstop. When a kid struck out, he went back to the end of the line. McNabb was loving it. After each whiff, he laughed and bellowed. The strikeout total, 26, 27, 28. He was like a shark. He had the bloodlust. He really wanted it. The victims were hunched and trembling, walking the plank. 34, 35. And then somebody new stepped up to the plate. Just a punky, runty little kid. No Red Sox or Green Sox uniform. Kind of scraggly. With a book in his hand, which he laid down on home plate. He stretched out a footing in the batter's box, cocked the bat on his shoulder, and stared at McNabb. McNabb croaked from the mound, "Get out of here, runt! This is a Little League record. You ain't in Little League." The kid walked away. Was he chickening out? No. He was lifting a red cap from the next batter in line and put it on. He was back in the box. McNabb almost fell to the mound. He was laughing so hard. "Okay, runt. Number 36, coming up." McNabb fired. The kid swung. The batters in line automatically turned their eyes to the backstop, where the ball should be, but it wasn't there. It was in the air, riding on a beeline right out to McNabb's head. The same line it came in on, only faster. McNabb froze, then flinched. Just in time, the ball missed his head, but nipped the bill of his hat and sent it spinning like a flying saucer out to shortstop. The ball landed in the second base dust and rolled all the way to the fence in center field. Dead silence. Nobody moved. We gotta stop there, 4th grade. But oh boy, there's so many things that maniac is doing. And I have a feeling it's gonna start a domino or a wave effect. So we'll have to see what happens to this myth or story of Maniac McGee. Or Jeffrey was his real name. So 4th grade, I loved seeing your emails with your favorite pets and favorite animals. Tonight, I want you to send me pictures of what you're having for dinner tonight. I'll try to do that too, so you see what I have for dinner. But anyways, that is my challenge to you, is take a picture of your dinner. Have an awesome night, 4th grade. We will see you tomorrow.